Up next on ITV, How Can I Help? With your host, Ronnie Doss.
Hi, my name is Ronnie Doss, and I live in San Diego, California. I'm interested in the environment and green policy, so I set out to explore what San Diego had to offer by meeting with local businesses, industries, government agencies, and nonprofit organizations as we showcase who's making a difference in our community by educating, implementing, creating, or currently using green practices and sustainable solutions. So sit back, relax, and welcome to How Can I Help? Get energized with an innovative look at lowering emissions in Carlsbad at K1 Speed. We want to start Season 2, Furious and Fast. Wow, that really sounds better the other way, but I don't know if I can legally say it, so this is what we're going to go with. I'm here in lovely Carlsbad, California with Chris of K1 Speed, and thank you for having us, first of all.
No problem. Thanks for coming, guys. Glad to have you.
Absolutely. So I'm kind of getting an idea, but could you tell us what is K1 Speed?
Basically, K1 Speed is Southern California's largest indoor karting track. We have 9 locations, and we're expanding every day.
Wow, and I noticed your karts are a little bit different than these gas-powered ones I used to go on when I was a kid. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, definitely a little different here. We're running batteries in our karts, so they are electric, which basically means zero emissions, which is much better for the environment.
Awesome. So yeah, and also the thing is, like, you don't have all those fumes, those overwhelming fumes when you're inside an
Exactly.
track.
So even if you have dinner plans afterwards, you leave here, you come out smelling great.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm all revved up to race. Do you think we could give it a try?
You can definitely give that a try. Take care of you.
It's an electric atmosphere here in downtown San Diego for the launch of Car2Go. So let's get moving forward in an eco-friendly way with Electro-GO. Each year, the United States produces about 10% of the world's petroleum, but consumes about 26% of the world's total production. Cars and light trucks are the single largest users of petroleum, consuming about 43% of the total. To help create a sustainable San Diego, it seems we would need some alternative to the traditional automobile.
Today we are making history for San Diego, for North America, and for the car-sharing movement across the world. Stop for a moment and consider this. For the first time in the history of North America, an entire city will have access to electric vehicles. Everyone who lives here in San Diego, or anyone who visits this great city, can be part of the next generation mobility movement. Car2Go is grateful to the City of San Diego, especially Mayor Sanders and his staff, for letting Car2Go participate in starting this electric vehicle mobility revolution. November 18, 2011 will forever mark the day that North America's first all-electric car-sharing network was made available to an entire city, and in this case it happens to be America's finest city. This car-sharing program is good for the community, It is right for the environment, and it's great for the city of San Diego. Car2Go provides San Diegans with unmatched options for moving around the city, and we are providing a way to actively help reduce their individual environmental footprint. Standing here adjacent to the historic Santa Fe Depot makes sense also. Like the trains that pull in and out of the station every day, Car2Go is a mobility option that helps people move around the city in the most convenient and cost-effective manner. Car2Go works well with existing forms of public transportation. In fact, when paired together, Car2Go and public transportation serve as a direct catalyst for reducing congestion and the overall emissions produced in San Diego. San Diego is committed to creating a sustainable future for this city, and so is Car2Go. Car2Go is the world's first free-floating car-sharing service, and now here in San Diego, we are also the world's first emissions-free car-sharing network. No other car-sharing company can make this claim, and no other city has this solution. Car-sharing is not entirely new to San Diego, and for that matter, neither is change. San Diego is a progressive city full of innovators. San Diegans don't just embrace technology, they create the technology that improves people's lives. San Diego and Car2Go have a lot in common. Together, we are rolling out a new era of car sharing, and you can bet the world is watching. What we do here today will serve as a model for other cities around the world. We are shaping the future of emissions-free urban mobility. Now, everyone who has dreamed of owning an electric vehicle but could not has the chance to embrace the benefits of electric vehicles in their daily lives. San Diego has already established itself as a leader with a strong commitment to the electric vehicle movement. By increasing transit options and facilitating the infrastructure for charging stations, San Diego is making it possible for electric vehicles to be integrated into everyday life. Car2Go is helping to redefine mobility in both the city and in individuals' lives by making electric vehicles available and economical, and by providing the vehicles to share collaboratively. Car sharing is the ultimate example of collaborative consumption, a growing global social movement that uses technology to enable people to share goods more efficiently and in a more sustainable way, reducing consumption and waste. We've designed Car2Go to be as easy as using your own vehicle, and in some cases, like a densely populated downtown area, it can actually be easier. Car2Go is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can use the cars with or without a reservation, and for as long as you need to. When you are finished using Car2Go, simply leave it in the operating area. Our parking options are abundant. Members can park in Car2Go designated spots, at city non-restricted meters, or on-street in residential neighborhoods within the operating area. When you are finished using Car2Go and end your rental, the Car2Go is immediately available for the next member to use. And the other great thing is you only pay for what you use. With Car2Go, you are only billed for the time you use it by the minute, with discounted rates for hourly and daily use. Free charging, insurance, parking, and maintenance are included in the rates. We think you will see that Car2Go is simple. Just get in and drive.
Tell me a little bit about just the impact the vehicle will have on our local community.
Well, you know, the good thing about the Spark for two, number one, obviously electric drive is great for the environment.
Okay.
That's simple. But the size of the vehicle really is an urban center vehicle. Generally, statistically, most people doing morning commute or going to run errands, it's one person in the vehicle. It's not two or three people. This is the perfect vehicle for that. And parking's easy, obviously. It takes up half the space of a normal car. So.
And then, what are the economic impacts? I mean, it seems like you've really got the community and the environmental impacts down, but what are the economic impacts?
Well, you know, especially with nowadays, people are more so than ever, they're really considering how they spend their money. And it's no secret, it's getting more and more expensive to own multiple vehicles for a family, and it's getting more and more expensive to own them downtown. And it's harder to own a vehicle. This really gives people the option, maybe they don't give up all their cars, but they can start to move towards only having maybe one family car, and then, you know, 2 or 3 family members utilizing Car2Go for their daily needs.
Great, well, thank you so much for letting me cruise by and get a real oil check.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. Charged up about the steering. Great.
Yeah, sign up, you guys. Thank you.
On behalf of the City of San Diego, I'm very pleased to welcome Car2Go to San Diego. We're incredibly proud to host the very first all-electric vehicle car-sharing network in North America. Today's launch says a lot about San Diego, about our culture, about our priorities, and about our enterprising spirit. Car2Go chose San Diego to roll out its first EV sharing program, partly because we've been ahead of the game in finding the charging network needed to support their service. And for commuters, as Nick mentioned, coming into downtown from the suburbs, this service gives them the flexibility to take public transit if they need to get around by car during the day. Finally, as a city with so much natural beauty, we're very aware of the environment. In my 6 years as mayor, I've seen time and time again that San Diegans jump at any opportunity to preserve natural resources, whether it's conserving water, installing solar panels, or recycling. We'll continue to work toward a better EV charging network with our partners in the Smart City San Diego Coalition, including SDG&E, General Electric, Clean Tech San Diego, and the university. Once again, I'm excited to welcome Car2Go to San Diego, proud that they've chosen this city for their testing around ground renovation, and wish them real success with this new service. Nick, thank you very much.
And how can the youth be involved in some of these environmental
Well, you know, we always appreciate health. One of the things that we understand is that kids are the ones that teach their parents. It doesn't matter whether the kid's in elementary school or whether the kid's in college. When you come home and train your parents in recycling, in the electric vehicles and all of these things, you know, that's how we started all of this. And I think the kids are, and young people are the most influential when it comes to this.
Wow. And what are your hopes on the future of San Diego? Is it going to be moving towards the sustainability and environment?
Well, I think that we're taking giant steps all the time, and we're really lucky to have SDG&E in San Diego. They've been working on it very impactfully. But I think that the fact that we're perfectly positioned, we really recognize the environment as part of San Diego and part of prosperity.
Last year, we were at California Center for Sustainable Energy to explore solar panels with the Renewable Solar Diego episode. Now we're back here, and I'm with David Almeida to learn a little bit about electric vehicles, get the nuts and bolts, and also how it's moving our community forward. First of all, thank you so much for having us.
You bet, Ronnie.
Yeah, so it's great to be back, and I kind of have a general idea of how electric vehicles work, but I want to see how it works for the community. What are some of the benefits with electric vehicles?
With a standard battery electric vehicle, so for a full electric vehicle, you've got the benefit of having a vehicle that is much more efficient than your standard internal combustion engine. The day that you buy it, it's at its most efficient, but because you're shifting your consumption from gasoline to the grid with electricity, you're getting more efficient as the grid gets more efficient. And because we live in California and we have a very, very clean grid, and we have state mandates that are pushing for more renewable energy to make it more efficient, the longer that you have your electric vehicle, the more efficient it's going to be.
Oh, wow. So yeah, that was going to be one of my things is instead of going from this fueling to charging, now we're going to have these problems with charging, but it seems like you're getting more choices when you go with this vehicle.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that, you know, there are some things to consider, like impacts to the grid when we have more electric vehicles. And that's why it's so important for EV owners to contact your utility, because you're essentially adding a similar load as what you would with a home to your neighborhood. Okay. So if you imagine a neighborhood that has 3 homes in a cul-de-sac, well, 2 of those homes get 2 EVs. That's adding on basically 2 small homes onto that grid. Oh, okay. So it's important for the utilities to know that so that they can adjust their infrastructure to accommodate that. But there are things that consumers can do too.
So then I guess the next question would be, are electric vehicles dependable and practical?
Well, I think it depends on how you're going to use them. You know, an electric vehicle, a battery electric vehicle, so a full electric vehicle, is very useful and very efficient for specific uses. Okay. For me, it's a great resource because I live in North Park from here, so about 6 miles away. And my average day, I usually drive less than 12 miles. But, you know, on the heaviest day, I drive somewhere around 50. That's perfectly within the range of an electric vehicle with today's technology. But let's say that I drive a little bit more. Like my wife, she has to work up in Los Angeles once a week. So she can't use an electric vehicle right now with the current technology.
Okay.
But you can use something called the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, which is what we got here with the plug-in Prius.
Okay.
So I think everyone knows what a Prius is. It's a standard hybrid vehicle. But the plug-in version just has an expanded battery so that you can do a certain amount of miles specifically on electricity.
Okay.
And then after you meet that that level, then it kicks over to the super efficient hybrid engine. And so in that sense, you know, when we think about electric vehicles, we don't want to just pigeonhole into battery electric vehicles. We want to open it up to the suite of different technologies that are coming out.
Okay.
So that includes battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. And so for that matter, my wife could definitely use this because it's super efficient in its hybrid state, but then when she's driving around town, she's taking advantage of all those EV miles.
Wow, okay. So as you're talking about with the grid and all this, it seems like what's going into the vehicle is getting cleaner and cleaner. But what about what's coming out of the vehicle? How are these batteries disposed of or recycled?
Well, the batteries are rarely ever going to be disposed of because they have such a high residual value. So meaning that the components that they're made up of are very valuable. So you would only want to recycle them. But recycling is just one aspect of it. We're doing studies right now with the National Renewable Energy Laboratories as well as many of the UC schools, so UC Davis, UC Berkeley, and UCSD, to develop kind of the next stage of batteries. So if you think about batteries like a Walkman or a Discman, I don't know if your viewers are going to remember that, but when you had a Walkman, you would use your batteries for a while and then they would no longer be able to charge the device.
Yeah.
But you could take them out and you could put them in a remote control and you could still use those batteries in the remote control for a while because the remote control required less energy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Same sort of concept with EVs. So when an EV battery can no longer take the charge to power a vehicle, you can pull out that battery and apply it to many other sources.
So can you tell us a little bit about the rebates and incentives for San Diego residents who are interested in getting into electric vehicles?
I definitely can. And it's not just for San Diego residents, it's also for all residents within the state of California.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so at the center, at the California Center for Sustainable Energy, we administer the California's Clean Vehicle Rebate Project, and that provides cash rebates for electric, plug-in hybrid electric, and fuel cell vehicles. So if you're a San Diego resident and you're interested in getting maybe one of these plug-in Priuses or perhaps a Nissan Leaf, think about coming to our website, checking out the application process, and we'll get you a rebate as soon as we can.
Wow, some savings while you're trying to sustain the environment. That's a perfect combination.
It's pretty great.
California Center for Sustainable Energy, thanks again for not only providing a place for outreach and education, but a resource center for all the residents here in San Diego, and letting me come around and ask you guys some more questions about stuff.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you
Thanks
so much for your time, and we'll be back with Green Yourself segment featuring David Almeida. California Center for Sustainable Energy gave me some great environmental advice. Now I wanted to see some real electric vehicle enthusiasts. I'm here with electric vehicle enthusiast Stephen Schultz in North Park, California. Tell us about the event.
Yeah, this is the inaugural event of what we're calling the San Diego Kilowatt Hour. It's a meetup group, and we got the idea from Vancouver, Canada, where they've been doing it for a while, and it's a pretty simple proposition. We just give people a monthly event where they can come if they're either riders of electric vehicles or enthusiastic about the technology. They can come and meet other people who ride, other people who are interested.
Definitely. And what got you interested in electric vehicles?
Well, you know, I saw a movie like a lot of other people did. We just have a newcomer arrive. Awesome.
Oh, nice.
Many years ago called Who Killed the Electric Car? And that movie motivated me to become a sustainability enthusiast and become very interested in alternative, cleaner forms of energy. So I got a Prius, you know, after that movie, and I love my Prius. It's a great car, but kind of nagged at me that it still uses gas and combustion.
Okay.
And I feel a lot better when I'm able to ride something that, you know, causes no pollution, makes no noise, and is just one of the cleanest ways to travel.
So have you had any hurdles or obstacles that you've had to maneuver? Oh wow, so that's kind of the big thing about Kilowatt Hour too, is you can come from any experience level with your vehicle, right?
Right, and it's about sharing those experiences, sharing latest information and tips, talking about failures and successes of our vehicles, how we can make them better, and just having a good time. I wanted to say too, there's a couple other things I'm involved with that has heavily inspired me putting this together. One is critical mass. I really have to tip my hat to critical mass. I admire that movement. It's a worldwide movement. There's something so empowering about hopping on your bike and being with hundreds of other bicycle enthusiasts and just kind of taking back the streets.
Absolutely.
This is a much smaller scale than that, but I hope over time that our numbers will grow as well, and maybe we'll even do some events with critical mass. Who knows?
Oh, wow.
And then the other thing that inspires me are moped gangs around town. They're kind of counterculture, younger people usually who get on their old vintage mopeds that they've restored and just have a great time rolling around the streets and having fun together. So this is kind of hopefully going to draw from both of those examples.
Definitely. It really seems like it's getting the community involved with sustainability, and instead of being awareness like, here's another textbook or here's another, me on a soapbox, it's just a fun way to ride.
And you're touching on a really important reason for a group like this as well. It's just getting out on the streets and showing people that vehicles like this exist.
Oh, wow.
Putting that thought in their mind that, wow, people actually do get on something like this and it gets them from point A to point B.
That's true.
A lot of us are pretty individualistic and we use our vehicles for individual purposes, and far fewer people might see us than would see us when we're in a larger group like this, making more of a statement.
Oh, yeah, so it would be like an education outreach statement as well.
As well, yes.
Wow, well, thank you so much for moving forward in a green way, and hope to see you on the streets.
Sure, if you come back in a few months, hopefully we'll have a lot more electric vehicles here.
Definitely will. We'll come check up on you.
Great. Thanks, Ronnie.
We've been learning a lot about electric vehicles, and I kind of wanted to get more energy efficiency tips. So could you tell us a little bit about what time of use is and how that affects the environment?
Yeah, sure. So I think the best way to talk about that is with looking at electricity load for a specific day. And so what I mean by load is the demand of electricity for any given day.
Okay.
And I've given you an image about a typical load for a summer day in San Diego Gas Electric territory. And so what you see from that image is that it's kind of a hump. So electricity demand starts off low in the early parts of the morning, so starting around like 5 a.m. But then as more people wake up, they go to work, the days get warmer, we start using our air conditioners, that electricity demand increases and increases and increases. And it kind of tops off at around, say, 4 o'clock. After that time, it goes down, and as more people are leaving work, it's getting cooler, and less electricity is consumed. So one of the ways that the utilities are trying to mitigate the excess demand from electric vehicles and to reduce stress on the grid is by creating incentives for people to charge off-peak. And what I mean by off-peak is that time between 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. when electricity demand is the highest, that's something called peak demand. And so what they're trying to do is shift the consumption of electricity for EV owners out of that peak demand, so away from 11 to 6 p.m. So they're creating lower electricity rates during those off-peak times than on that on-peak time. And so it's creating an incentive for consumers to basically shift that electricity consumption to those areas where electricity demand is lower. When you think about it, the utility has to provide electricity to all of its consumers based on that demand at any given moment. Because they want to ensure that as soon as you plug in whatever you're going to plug in, you're going to get electricity.
Yeah, okay.
So they have to create an energy generation mix that's going to be able to meet demand at all times. And as we already looked at with the power content label, there's several different components of that electricity demand. So you've got hydro, you've got renewables like wind and solar, but then you also have coal, nuclear, and hydrogen.
Okay.
Well, in order to do that, so that hump, there's something called the generation stack. So how much electricity is generated by each of those components meets up for that demand.
Oh.
At the greatest demand, the utilities like to use something called peaker plants. And peaker plants are things like usually coal or heavily more carbon-heavy fuel sources to that can come on at a quicker time, and they can be turned off at a quicker time. The majority of our electricity comes from compressed natural gas or combined cycle natural gas plants that are super efficient. And they're efficient because you can turn them on and they run for all the time, 24/7. But it takes them a while to get up to that efficiency. So they have a higher ramp-up period and a lower ramp-down period. But for like a coal plant, it takes a shorter amount of time to turn it on and a shorter amount of time to turn it off. That ramp on and ramp off.
Shoveling the coal in.
Well, I don't know if it's physically shoveling in, but yeah, exactly.
They're heating that up, making the steam, and it's just immediate combustion.
Yeah, it's much, much quicker. I don't think it's immediate, but it's much, much quicker.
Okay.
So when you're charging between that peak period of 11 to 6 p.m., you're taking advantage of that super efficient combined cycle natural gas plants. But you have a potential to be taking advantage of that those peaker plants that rely more heavily on high carbon intensity fuels like coal. So shifting your load to other areas or shifting your charging to different times of the day, so either in the early morning or late at night, you can reduce your environmental impact.
Okay. So like you're saying, the generational load would be lower in those other times because you're still using the combined cycle natural gas,
right? As
opposed to as you keep going up to get power, you need something quicker and easier, and so it wouldn't be as environmentally efficient. It'd be more energy, just what they have to do to keep up with demand.
Basically, I mean, it's a really complex idea, but I think you basically got the gist.
Okay.
But I mean, the important note for this is, I mean, even when you're using that electricity from those peaker plants during the 11 to 6 period or during that peak period, you're still using electricity or using fuel much more efficiently than you would be if you were on a gas. So compared to my Jetta, which is pretty efficient, it's still, it can't compete with an electric vehicle.
Okay, so electric overall is always going to be kind of lower environmental impact, but the times when we use energy could lower that even more.
Right. And we're talking about California, right? So if you're, based on whatever you get your energy generation from, let's say that California relied more heavily on coal, that's going to change that argument because you're shifting your fuel source from gasoline from the gas pump to the grid. And depending on how efficient that grid is or how low emitting that grid is, that's going to really depend that argument. So if we go to other areas where, say, West Virginia, that relies more heavily on coal, it's going to be a different story. I think when you're thinking about the benefits of electric vehicles, there is the carbon savings that you're getting from utilizing low carbon sources of fuel through electricity. There's also public health impact as well. So you're cleaning the air through these other mechanisms because you're reducing the amount of gasoline consumption, but you're also creating a safer environment for all Californians.
Wow, amazing. So those are some easy tips for you to be more energy efficient and lower your impact on the environment. Thank you so much, David.
You bet, buddy.
Yeah. From energy independence to polluting less, electric vehicles drive us to a more sustainable San Diego. This is Ronnie Doss reminding you that if everything is coming your way, you're probably in the wrong lane. Hope you enjoyed the show, drive safe, and keep on rolling, Eco Diego.